Here we have the Venerable Piṭaka with the nuns. Buddhist Books Podcast, episode 115, Tipiṭaka, part 53, in which we will be continuing with Pācittiya, in this case, 21, possibly 22, and we'll see how it goes. If this is your first time seeing me, go ahead and click right there. That will take you to the Tipiṭaka playlist. And better to start with episode 1. And to those for whom I just pointed at nothing, or I didn't point at all because you're only hearing the audio, hello! When I say that, of course, I'm talking to the people on YouTube. Some of these videos are a bit more visually oriented, like the one where we did the movie reaction, for instance. The audio for that might be a little dull, I don't know. Let me know if you enjoyed it. On the subject, a little bit of news. Edward Reeb's Buddhist Books Podcast is now available on Spotify. So if you have Spotify on your phone, probably, usually it's the phone, right? You can type in just Edward Reeb and it'll come up, or Edward Reeb's Buddhist Books. Or if you want to focus on Tipiṭaka, you can type in Tipiṭaka, and there's a separate podcast also on Spotify for that. When I was scuba diving in
Andaman and Nicobar Islands,
there was someone there, asked what I did, and I mentioned, among other things, hosting podcasts. And she said, "Oh, are you on Spotify?" And I was like, "No." And there was this palpable sort of, podcaster, eh? I'm like, just because Joe Rogan, well, anyway. I was saying, no, I'm on Apple Podcasts. They invented podcasts, iTunes, all that, every podcasting app, but no, not Spotify. But when I looked into it a little bit, it's a simple thing, and I'm not giving up ownership of the content or anything like that by putting it up there. So enough about that. That is not very interesting, nor spiritual now, is it? Of course, it's only in a sort of roundabout way that these rules are spiritual. I mean, what is spiritual, really, right? Our special guest today, a guy. Now, you might be asking yourself, why did Edward just refer to a cow as a guy? And if that is indeed what you're thinking, then you do not speak Hindi, because I just said it was a cow in Hindi, except its part. That was English. Anyway, so this is, I think, meant to be a sacred cow, which is more of a Hindu thing. But, I'm here in India. Lord Buddha spent most of his time in India, except for that part of his time which he spent in Nepal. Of course, back then, they didn't call it that. Does the cow need much of an introduction? I don't think so. But since in the previous episode and a few earlier ones, Lord Buddha was emphasizing the sacredness of all life, I thought it would be appropriate. And I've run out of guests. I need to get some more statues. Only kidding. I have enough statues. All right. So the other way that you can get to the Spotify is if you're on YouTube, in the down below in the description of this episode, there's a link, and that will take you to the website for Edward Reeb's Buddhist Books Podcast. And then right up there at the top, there's a purple icon, which if you have an iPhone, that's the one you click, because that's Apple Podcasts. There's the red one in the middle, that's YouTube, which you don't need to click that because you already found that one. And then the one on the right, the green one, that's Spotify. So if you're on an Android phone and you have Spotify, then that's another way to get there. All right, enough about that. How is everyone? Everyone good? How are you? You good? He's back. All right. Expiation. Pācittiya. 21. Oh, this is also on archive.org, the Internet Archive. Presumably there it will last forever. It'll be on YouTube, presumably forever, or until the heat death of the universe. But there's the algorithm to deal with. Archive.org, their whole thing is that they want to preserve the Internet. They want to preserve the content that's on the Internet for our distant descendants to be able to view 1,000 years, 2,000 years from now, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's not their whole thing, but that's the idea. So all of these episodes are up there as well. You might notice on the episode sites, it says you can view this through the purple or the black icon. That one is archive.org. On the main page, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find among the 30 or so different podcasting platforms is a little black icon. That's archive.org. There you can actually download these videos if you want to do that for some reason. Maybe you want to edit them into something, some project you've got going on. Who knows? We shall see. Expiation. Pācittiya. 21. At one time, the enlightened one, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time, monks who were elders, exhorting nuns, came to receive requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, medicine for the sick. Then it occurred to the group of 6 monks. These guys. All right. It occurred to the group of 6 monks, quote, "Your reverences, at present, monks who are elders, exhorting nuns, come to receive requisites, 3 dots. For the sick, come, your reverences, let us too exhort nuns." End quote. Then the group of 6 monks, approaching nuns, spoke thus, quote, "Now approach us, sisters, then we will exhort you." End quote. You is in parentheses. Then those nuns approached the group of 6 monks, and having approached and greeted the group of 6 monks, they sat down at a respectful distance. Then the group of 6 monks, giving the nuns merely inferior talk on Dhamma, spending the day in worldly talk, dismissed them, saying, quote, "Go, sisters," end quote. Then these nuns approached the Lord, and having approached and greeted the Lord, they stood at a respectful distance. As they were standing at a respectful distance, the Lord spoke thus to these nuns, quote, "I hope, nuns, that exhortation was effective." End quote. Quote, "Lord, how could the exhortation be effective? The masters, the group of 6 monks, giving merely inferior talk, 3 dots, dismissed us, saying, quote within quotes, 'Go, sisters,' end quote, then quotes, end quote. Then the Lord gladdened, roused, pleased, delighted these nuns with talk on Dhamma. Then these nuns, gladdened, 3 dots, delighted by the Lord with talk on Dhamma, greeting the Lord, departed, keeping their right sides toward him. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having had the order of monks convened, questioned the group of 6 monks, saying, "Is it true, as is said, that you monks, giving nuns merely inferior talk, 3 dots, quote within quotes, 'Go, sisters,' end quote within quotes, end quote? It is true, Lord." The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, "How can you, foolish men, giving nuns merely inferior talk on Dhamma, dismiss them, saying, quote within quotes, go sisters. It is not foolish men, for pleasing those who are not yet in parentheses pleased, end quote. And having rebuked them and given reasoned talk, he addressed the monks, saying, quote, monks, I allow, parentheses, you, and parentheses, to agree upon an exhorter of nuns. And thus, monks, should he be agreed upon. First, a monk should be requested, and having been requested, the order should be informed by an experienced, competent monk, saying, quote within quotes, honored sirs, let the order listen to me. If it seems right to the order, let the order agree upon the monk so-and-so as exhorter of nuns. This is the motion. Honored sirs, let the order listen to me. The order agrees upon the monk so-and-so as exhorter of nuns. If it pleases the venerable ones, let the monk so-and-so be agreed upon as exhorter of nuns. They should speak. Okay, so this is, I don't like that it's in 3 dots because this is a fun part. If it seems good to the order, then let them be silent. If it does not seem good, then they should speak. All right, that sounded pretty silent to me. See, that's how they vote. And a second time I tell this matter, 3 dots. And a third time I tell this matter. Let the order listen to me, 3 dots. They should speak. Silent again. The monk so-and-so is agreed upon by the order as exhorter of nuns. And it is right, 3 dots. Thus do I understand this. End quote within quotes, end quote. Because Buddha was talking and saying what a person should say, the elder, experienced monk should say when they're doing this whole process. So quote within quotes, then quotes. Right? Then the Lord, having rebuked the group of 6 monks in many a figure for their weakness, 3 dots, quote, 3 dots, and thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk not agreed upon should exhort nuns, there is an offense of expiation. End quote. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Cheers. See the 8 auspicious symbols? Now, at that time, monks who were elders and who had been agreed upon, exhorting nuns, came to receive, as before, requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, medicines for the sick. Then it occurred to the group of 6 monks, your reverences, Lord Buddha's away, so... Your reverences, at present, the monks who are elders, parentheses, and who have been, end parentheses, agreed upon, exhorting nuns, are receiving, as before, requisites, 3 dots, for the sick. Come, your reverences, let us, going outside the boundary of their particular avasa, doubtless with the idea of setting up as a sangha on their own and carrying out their own formal acts. Okay, that's in the footnote. Agreeing upon one another as exhorter of nuns, exhort the nuns. End quote. This is like sort of subtly leaning towards schismatic behavior. They're going to set up their own little meeting, just the 6 of them, and elect one of them exhorter of nuns. Right. Okay. Let's see where this is going. Then the group of 6 monks, going outside the boundary, agreeing upon one another as exhorter of nuns, approaching the nuns, said, quote, "Now we, sisters, are agreed upon, so approach us and we will exhort you," you in parentheses, end quote. Then these nuns, 3 dots, parentheses, etc., as above, end parentheses, 3 dots. Thank you, Miss Horner. Basically what happened before, right? Having rebuked them and given reasoned talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, "I allow you, monks, to agree upon..." Oh, okay. So a bunch of shenanigans happened, and then the nuns told the Lord, and then he gave reasoned talk, and then he said, quote, "I allow you, monks, to agree upon a monk endowed with 8 qualities as exhorter of nuns. One who is virtuous, who lives restrained by the restraint of Pācittiya." The footnote doesn't help. I look forward to learning more about Pācittiya. I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with other kinds of mocha. Right. Who is possessed of good behavior and lawful resort, who sees danger in the slightest faults, who, undertaking, trains himself in the rules of training, who has become very learned, who knows the learning by heart, who is the store of learning. Those things which, lovely at the beginning, lovely at the middle, lovely at the ending, declare with the spirit, with the letter, the Brahma life, completely fulfilled, wholly purified. Such things come to be much learned by him, learnt by heart, repeated out loud, carefully pondered over, well penetrated by vision. Both the Patimokkha's come to be properly handed down to him in detail, well sectioned, well regulated, well investigated, rule by rule as to the linguistic form. This sounds like more than 8 characteristics, but I guess he's going into detail about one of the characteristics. He comes to be of charming speech, of charming delivery. Not too charming, I hope, if you're sending him to nuns. As a rule, he becomes dear to nuns, liked by them in parentheses, by them in parentheses. He becomes competent to exhort nuns. He does not come to be one who, on going forth for the sake of the Lord, on being clad in the yellow robes, has previously committed, parentheses, some offense, end parentheses, against an important rule. He comes to be one of 20 years standing, or of more than 20 years standing. Monks, I allow you to agree upon a monk endowed with these 8 qualities, as exhorter of nuns. End quote. Do any of you 6 have those 8 qualities? Didn't think so. Whatever means 3 dots. Monk means 3 dots. If you saw the one before this one, we did the flashback. Nuns means ordained by both orders. Should exhort means if he exhorts concerning the 8 important rules, there is an offense of expiation. If he exhorts concerning another rule, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he exhorts one who has been ordained by one, parentheses, order only, end parentheses, there is an offense of wrongdoing. When that monk has been agreed upon, sweeping the cell, providing drinking water and water for washing, making ready a seat, taking a colleague, sounds like something that HR needs to be contacted about. Let's see what the footnote is. Dutiya says this means that a Dutiya should be wanted for setting him free from offense in teaching Dhamma. Oh, right. A learned man should be present. Right. Remember? If he's going to be alone with the nuns, then there should be a learned man. All right. We didn't forget that other rule. So taking a colleague means like bringing a learned man, not the HR thing. They should sit down. The nuns going there, greeting that monk, should sit down at a respectful distance. They should be asked by that monk, quote and quotes, "Sisters, are you all come?" End quote within quotes. If they say, quote within quotes, "Master, we are all come," end quote within quotes, he says, quote within quotes, "Sisters, are the 8 important rules being kept up?" End quote within quotes. If they say, quote within quotes, "Master, they are being kept up," end quote within quotes. He saying, quote within quotes, "This, sisters, is the exhortation," end quote within quotes, should deliver it. If they say, quote within quotes, "Master, they are not being kept up," end quote within quotes, he should expound them. A nun who has been ordained, parentheses, even, and parentheses, for a century, must greet respectfully, rise up from her seat, salute with joined palms, do proper homage to a monk ordained but that day. So here we see some of the remnants of the old patriarchal way of kind of the whole world for the most part. So a nun who's been a nun for 100 years should pay homage to a monk who just became a monk that day because she's a nun and he's a monk. All right. It is what it is. It's written down in the oldest scriptures. We can feel about it how we feel about it. Let's keep reading. This rule is to be honored, respected, revered, venerated, never to be transgressed during her life. A nun must not spend the rains in a residence where there is no monk. This rule is to be honored, her life. All right. Every half month, a nun should desire 2 things from the order of monks: the asking, parentheses, as to the date, and parentheses, of the observance day, and the coming for the exhortation. This rule is to be honored, her life. Respected, revered, venerated, never to be transgressed during her life is what goes in the 3 dots there. After the rains, a nun must keep the ceremony held at the end of the rains before both orders in respect of 3 matters: what was seen, what was heard, what was suspected. This rule is to be honored, her life. A nun offending against an important rule must undergo the manatta discipline for half a month before both orders. This rule, her life. When, as a novice, she has trained in the 6 rules for 2 years, she should seek ordination from both orders. This rule, her life. A monk is not to be reviled or abused in any way by a nun. This rule, her life. As long as the monk is expected not to do, that a person should not do that to a person, right? From today, admonition of monks by nuns is forbidden. Admonition of nuns by monks is not forbidden. Well, there you go, the double standard there in ink. This rule is to be honored, respected, revered, venerated, never to be transgressed during her life. So for people who thought that Lord Buddha was a feminist, I'm sorry to say he was not. If saying, quote within quotes, "Master, we are all come," end quote within quotes, he speaks another rule, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If saying, quote within quotes, "Master, we are not all come," end quote within quotes, he speaks the 8 important rules, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If not delivering the exhortation, he speaks another rule, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is not a legally valid act, when it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come, when the order of nuns is not all come, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that it is not a legally valid act, when it is not a legally valid act, parentheses, and parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether the order of nuns is not all come, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that it is not a legally valid act, when it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is not all come, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether it is not a legally valid act, parentheses, and parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is not all come, 3 dots. If he is in doubt as to whether it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether the order of nuns is not all come, 3 dots, thinking that they are all come, 3 dots, there is an offense of expiation. Thinking like they have all come, they all came, they all arrived, they're all there. It's 1930s when she's translating this, so. All right, if he thinks that it is a legally valid act when it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is not all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether it is not all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is not all come, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that it is not a legally valid act when it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether it is not all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is all come, there is an offense of expiation. There's just basically always an offense of expiation. No. If he is in doubt as to whether it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether it is not all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is all come, there is an offense of expiation. This is one of those that's relevant historically. That you'll want to know this rule by heart if you plan on getting in a time machine and infiltrating a Theravadan order 2,000 years ago. I don't know if maybe they still, some abide by this. If they do, I like the Renaissance fair too. Sorry. If he thinks that it is a legally valid act when it is not a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether it is not all come, 3 dots, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is all come, there is an offense of expiation. Just one more page, I promise. If he thinks that it is not a legally valid act when it is a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is not all come, 3 dots, and exhorts, being in doubt as to whether it is not all come, 3 dots, just trying to make it interesting, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is not all come, not all of it, right? There is an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether it is a legally valid act, and exhorts, and being in parentheses, got to stop and just take some time to mention that, and is in parentheses. That's important for your test tomorrow. I don't know. I imagine some people might be doing some kind of graduate studies program in comparative religion or something, and might be assigned to read these Pali Text Society translations, and maybe they discovered my channel. Hi, if that's you, comment below if you're on YouTube. Otherwise, there's no place to comment on Spotify. Anyway, Shall we jump back into it? If he thinks that it is a legally valid act, I'm not paying enough attention to be able to tell you, like if someone told me right now, like, explain the difference between when it's an expiation and when it's a wrongdoing, I'd be like, when the order of nuns is not all come, but he thinks it is all come, and then it's I don't know. I have no idea. But if I listen to this 6 times, I should be ready for time traveling back 2,000 years and infiltrating the Theravadan order. Otherwise, this isn't all that relevant to our path now, is it? I mean, just being honest here. If he is in doubt, yes. If he thinks that it is a legally valid act when it is a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is not all come, 3 dots, being in doubt, 3 dots, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is not all come, there is an offensive wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is not a legally valid act when it is a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is all come, 3 dots, is in doubt, 3 dots, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is all come, there is an offensive wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether it is a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, exhorts, thinking that it is all come when the order of nuns is all come, there is an offensive wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is a legally valid act when it is a legally valid act, and, in parentheses, thinking that it is not all come when the order of nuns is all come, there is an offensive wrongdoing. 3 dots. And, in parentheses, exhorts, being in doubt as to whether the order of nuns is all come, there is an offensive wrongdoing. 3 dots. Thinking that the order of nuns is all come, when it is all come, there is no offense. Okay. There is no offense, parentheses, in, close parentheses, giving an exposition, giving an interrogation, if he expounds being called upon, quote within quotes, expound, master, end quote within quotes, if he asks a question, if, having asked a question, he speaks, if, talking for the good of another, nuns hear, if it is to a female probationer, if it is to a female novice, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The first, meaning the 21st, because this is the 3rd group. The first one was 1 to 10, second 11 to 20. Number 21 is the first. I thought this might be a good time to bring back, I mean, it's not the first time, at least this is white Tara, Yeshidawa, and green Tara. You can tell because she's green. Just kidding. You can tell because she's looking like she wants to get up and help. She's not in full lotus position, where white Tara is in full lotus position. And she has eyes on her hands, feet, as well as the 3rd eye and the regular 2 eyes. This is green Tara. So Tara was a nun at one time. I think her story is introduced in Vajrayana Buddhism. And she took the vow of the Bodhisattva, and she was told by her instructors that at some point she would have to incarnate as a man, because in all of her incarnations up to that point, she had always been female. So she took the vow of the Bodhisattva, which we'll get into in the future with the Mahayana Buddhism, which is basically, I will reincarnate until every being, every sentient being has attained nirvana. I will reincarnate as a bodhisattva and help and teach and act with compassion and assist all sentient beings in their path toward nirvana. I will not exit the wheel of samsara, right? Which is, a little bit of a different idea than in Theravada, which is kind of the whole point is to exit. And Mahayana introduced this point is let's not exit until every being is coming with us. So she modified, basically, I might be telling a version of the story that's different from another version of the story, but Tara modified her bodhisattva vow. She said, I will reincarnate until every sentient being has attained nirvana, and I will never incarnate as a man. So, after reading that last Pācittiya, I thought I'd balance out the energy a little bit, since that was very heavily, old-fashioned, male-dominated, and patriarchal. I think that there were some people, even 1,500 some odd years ago, who felt similarly and wanted to introduce ideas, or they tapped into stories that contradict that kind of mentality. So she's sort of a heroic feminist character in Buddhism, albeit Vajrayana Buddhism. So far, there isn't an equivalent in early pre-sectarian Buddhism. All right, so there's that. The other thing I wanted to mention while I'm on this subject, or while I'm in between episodes, I'm going to read one more. Or in between readings, in between Pācittiyas, is my friend Ryan at Praxis Behind the Obscure has recently undergone, I think it was an 8-day or 7-day retreat, but it was online. So it was like something you do at home and connect with people through the internet. And it was Pali text oriented. So there were scriptures not from the first basket, not from the Vinaya Piṭaka, but from the discourses that he was required to read before the week began, and then there's meditation and all that sort of thing. So after he finished with that retreat, he interviewed one of the instructors, and if you would like, it's about an hour and a half, and you can listen to that conversation by clicking right here. All right, let's find out what Pācittiya 22 is, shall we? Expiation, Pācittiya 22. At one time, the Enlightened One, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now, at that time, monks who were elders exhorted the nuns in turn. Now, at that time, it came to be the turn of the Venerable Tipiṭaka. Well, we haven't heard from Tipiṭaka yet, have we? So I don't know yet what it is that Tipiṭaka is about to do. So, everybody, this is Tipiṭaka. What is he? Is he a llama? A horse? You see him? Something. So, here we have the Venerable Tipiṭaka with the nuns. The nuns said, quote, "Now today the exhortation will not be effective, for now Master Tipiṭaka will speak the same stanza again and again." End quote. Then these nuns approached the Venerable Tipiṭaka, and having approached and greeted the Venerable Tipiṭaka, they sat down at a respectful distance. Facing the nuns. As they were sitting down at a respectful distance, the Venerable Tipiṭaka spoke thus to these nuns, quote, "Sisters, are you all come?" End quote. Quote, "Master, we are all come." End quote. Quote, "Sisters, are the 8 important rules being kept up?" End quote. Quote, "They are being kept up, Master." End quote. Quote, "Sisters, this is the exhortation." End quote. Parentheses, "and delivering," parentheses, "it, he spoke this stanza again and again." Quote, "For the sage, high-minded, zealous, trained in paths of wisdom, for such tranquil, ever mindful, sorrows come not to be." End quote. The nuns spoke thus. "Is it not as we said? The exhortation will not now become effective today, for now Master Tipiṭaka will speak the same stanza again and again. End quote. The Venerable Tipiṭaka heard this conversation of those nuns. The Venerable Tipiṭaka, rising up above the ground, paced up and down in the air, in the sky. Then he stood, then he sat down, then he lay down in a sleeping place, then he was obscured, then blazed forth, then he disappeared. He spoke this same stanza and another long utterance of the enlightened ones. The nuns spoke, quote, "Indeed it is wonderful, good sir. Indeed it is marvelous, good sir. Indeed never before has an exhortation come to be so effective as this one of Master Tipiṭaka." End quote. Then the Venerable Tipiṭaka, exhorting these nuns until the dark of the night, dismissed them, saying, quote, "Go, sisters." Then these nuns, staying outside the town because the town gate was closed, entered the town in the morning. People looked down upon, criticized, spread it about, saying, quote, "These nuns are not leading the Brahma life. Having remained together with monks in the monastery, now they are entering the town." End quote. Monks heard these people who, spread it about. Those who were modest monks, spread it about, saying, quote, "How can the Venerable Tipiṭaka exhort nuns after sunset?" End quote. So that's the crime. Quote, "Is it true, as is said, that you, Tipiṭaka, exhorted nuns after sunset?" "It is true, Lord." The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked him, saying, quote, "How can you, Tipiṭaka, after sunset?" Tipiṭaka, "It is not for pleasing those who are not, yet in parentheses, pleased." And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. If a monk, even though agreed upon, should exhort nuns after sunset, there is an offense of expiation. End quote. Agreed upon means agreed upon by an official act at which the motion is put 3 times and then followed by the decision. You remember that from a little earlier in this episode. After sunset means after the sun has gone down. I think some of these monks aren't too bright. They need that explained. Nuns means ordained by both orders. Should exhort means if he exhorts concerning the 8 important rules or concerning another rule, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that the sun, has set when it has set, and exhorts, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether it has set, and exhorts, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that it has not set when it has set, and exhorts, there is an offense of expiation. If he exhorts one who has been ordained by one, order only, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it has set when it has not set, there's an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether it has not set, there's an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it has not set when it has not set, there's no offense. There is no offense, in, and giving an exposition, giving an interrogation, if he expounds being called upon, quote within quotes, expound master, end quote within quotes. If he asks a question, if having asked a question he speaks, If talking for the good of another, nuns here. If it is to a female probationer, if it is to a female novice, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The second, meaning, of course, the 22nd. Wow. What was his name? I've already forgotten. See? I can... Kalapandaka. This guy. This is an interesting guy. He repeats the same stanza again and again, and people think that it's boring, but then he demonstrates with these further men type acts, these supernatural acts, that he's attained these incredible heights, and that perhaps a person shouldn't dismiss him so quickly by the fact that he's repeating the same thing over and over. Maybe what he's saying over and over is important. But then the whole thing ends up being the setup for a rule that you're not supposed to teach nuns after sunset. I, for one, am looking forward to, 2 years from now, when we get into the 5th century Common Era Buddha-Gosa commentaries and other commentaries out of Burma and Sri Lanka about the Tipiṭaka, because I'm hoping that someone is going to go into some of these things. Because, this isn't the first time this has happened, where there's been a very interesting, elaborate setup for something that ends up being totally unrelated to what the setup was. So, this is an interesting guy. I'm going to keep my eye on this one. Special thanks to our special guests, the Lord's Buddha, Lady Buddha, not Lady Buddha like Smurfette, but they say Lord Buddha, so Lady Buddha, right? Is that Tara, the Taras? And, of course, the guy who's not a guy in the sense of... Never mind. Thank you to all of you for going on this sometimes interesting, strange ride through the history of Buddhism, through the oldest of the old scriptures of pre-sectarian, early Theravada Buddhism. Well, it is what it is, and fortunately, things have changed. In a lot of ways, there's still a lot of work to do. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and close. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Oh.